Welcome to Uncomfortable Growth Uncut, where we celebrate those who defy fear, embrace growth, and live without regret. In this episode, we peel back the layers to reveal the person behind the profile with Jess White. Jess's story is heart-wrenching and inspiring. She opens up about her childhood, marked by the responsibility of caring for a disabled sister and the loss of another. These early experiences instilled in her a fierce independence that was, in reality, a facade for crippling insecurity. It's a profound reminder of the complexities behind the faces we see in the boardroom and the hidden battles that shape each leader today. So welcome, listeners. I'm here today with the incredible Jess, who is infamous for those who know her as being an amazing human being, but she's also the CEO of Kinesso with Mediabrands. So welcome, Jess.
Thank you. Good to be here.
The thing we always kick off with is your own uncomfortable growth story. So what would you like to share with us today?
Yes, uncomfortable growth stories. Where do you start?
Which one?
It's which one? I have a 40 years worth of it. So I thought what I might share is one that was quite formative when I was from a young age. But the way, if I think about it, I think of my career and my growth in chapters. So I would say the story I'll share will be the early years of what I kind of more recently, more in the last 6 to 10 years, I discovered was what I would call like a crippling insecurity that I didn't realize I had, and where that stemmed from. And I would say that kind of came from my very early years, and I kind of had to unpack a few things to move from that crippling insecurity into then what was kind of masked with fierce independence. It's like I kind of wore this armor throughout my professional career, or even probably social. I even think about it, probably even socially, I would, put this armor on, and it came across as just being like fierce independence or confidence, but it really wasn't. It wasn't authentic to kind of where I feel now, which is more around I think, what would I call it? Maybe a quiet confidence. Still definitely on a journey. Still definitely on the journey. Maybe into more of a quiet knowing. I don't know. That's what is exciting about it all. It's like, who knows what's next? But I think in my early years, I think I look back and I go, where did this crippling insecurity kind of come from? And how I sort of worked through that, or even identified it, but how I kind of worked through that to kind of be where I am today. But it sort of goes back to, and I ignored this for many, 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 many years. Growing up in a household with single mum, there wasn't a lot of, there wasn't a lot of wealth. We lived a very, very happy life, but it was, there wasn't a lot of bells and whistles. It was very no frills, but it was living in a house with a disabled sister, and we didn't realize at first that she had a disability. And living in a household where there's a lot going on, my mum's not only trying to look after her own health because of going through having a disabled child, but also my sister was a twin, and we lost the other one. We lost my other sister Rebecca, but Hannah survived, and she did have a disability, and it meant that I kind of had to very early on figure things out on my own, and figure things out in a way because I had a sister who didn't understand or see the world the same way everyone else did. and couldn't interact with the world in the way that she would want to, because she had this disability, couldn't communicate. And also you would have to work with how people would treat her as well. Like, so really starting to understand at a really young age how cruel the world can be, but also how beautiful the world can be. And of course, this is all happening with a fragile young mind, and I have no idea that I'm learning all these things. It's all a subconscious journey that I'm going on. But what it did was I became fiercely, fiercely independent, started to just, as I say, I wrapped myself in an armor and a mask that kind of went, I can do this, I can do things on my own. I'm here to look after my sister, I'm here to help my mum, I'm here to help other people. And that sort of became my role, and didn't put myself first. So I always put myself as on the back seat, and it was okay that maybe my needs weren't being met. It's okay that maybe what I need isn't important, or what I desire isn't important, or what that sort of thing. And
there was so much need around you, right? There was, I mean, you could see there was so much need and such difficult circumstance. Were you the eldest, Jess? Or sorry, are you the eldest?
No, I do have an elder sister, but she left to move to Sydney to do school, because we weren't in Sydney at the time. We were living on the coast. So she actually left. So there was a period there where it was more just myself, my mum, and my younger sister. So, I mean, psychologists would probably have a field day, therapists. There's abandonment. There's all those things in there, like all the fun stuff. But
it's people trying to do their best, right? Like, I mean, and this is the hard reality that you don't often see or know about people. And I mean, I just appreciate your courage in sharing this, because, when we go to the workplace and we show up, we don't understand how hard every day can be for others who may be standing beside us. Like there can be such differences. And, obviously it was a huge challenge for the whole family.
Yeah. And there is often, and it doesn't happen all the time, but a lot of the time, if someone's struggling, or someone behaves or responds in a strange way, my immediate reaction is not to be, or response isn't to be like, to write that off. It's almost that's happening for a reason. And I think, I've kind of flipped the script a little bit in my own head over the years, from sort of somewhat being ashamed, like what was the stigma attached, because we were in a small town, what's the stigma attached to having a disabled child, and that sort of thing. And how like she would have like outbursts in the middle of a shopping center, everyone's looking at you, and so there's the fear and shame and anxiety that sits all around that. But then actually then I also flipped into compassion mode of being like, she's in crisis right now, and what can we do to kind of help her? And I had a lot of training in how do you support in crisis mode, as opposed to I guess reject but actually embrace in crisis. And that I now realize is now actually a bit of a superpower, because then it's so easy for us to reject when maybe someone behaves funny, or it makes us reflect on ourselves, and we might react because it's maybe triggering us in a way, but it's sort of, we have no idea what people are going through in a day. We never know, and we don't know what their triggers are, we don't know what's happening. And so that's why I say this was formative years, because so much of it actually did build up a bit of, there was shame, there's all this stuff like that's packed in there, but I've been able to, over the years, kind of really push through that, and turn a lot of the experience into now a real positive skills that I can then bring into just my daily life. So yeah, I would say they were informative years, but it took me really until when I moved into my 20s. I was pretty good at drama, good at acting. It was one of my top subjects at school, which was great because what it meant was I could just pretend everything was fine. And for
Well, and you were
many,
used to connecting with emotion, right? So
yeah,
you had
yes, true.
to
I
connect
didn't
with
do it that way,
emotion.
actually.
Yeah, very
Yes.
frequently.
Yeah, I never thought of it like that. Yeah, that was kind of instinctual. Yeah, so anyway, turns out I was all right at acting. And that really helped me in my career because I would just pretend. I would just show up and just be like, well, whatever, like everything's hunky-dory, like my life is like as good as any,
Yeah. Yeah.
And even if I did have that crippling insecurity, and that's what I say, I did, and it came from that fear and shame and and like just trying to understand what's happening with my sister and all that sort of stuff from such a young age. I didn't realize how much it affected me, but I kind of got into my late 20s and I couldn't pretend anymore. I found like I would have to come up and do a presentation, which how many times have I already done a presentation in my career? And my body would shake. My
Mm.
body would start shaking physically.
Mm.
And I believe now that that was my body telling me that there is something that you have not, like you're pretending your way through life and you cannot pretend anymore. There's
Yeah.
only so far. Life has a way of holding you accountable.
Yes.
Life
Yes.
has a way of doing that. And that was a real crossroads for me where I was like, oh, okay, it's time to face who you are, get to
Yeah.
know who you are, no matter how scared you are. You need to start looking at kind of some of those things that happened in the past and how you interpreted it, how you perceived it, and why do you carry shame and insecurity around that. And that really was a catalyst then for me to really start to go through some growth and working through my own mindset.
Yeah.
um,
I find it just a couple of comments because you've shared so many different pieces. And I mean, first and foremost, I love how you talked about connecting with compassion and not just, kind of suppressing or, kind of distancing. It helped you to lean into compassion. Because I think that, there are all these emotions that come from hard circumstances, and some of them can be positive, but some of them are really negative and hard, like shame, embarrassment, fear, like all of those things. And just being able to recognize that you lent into compassion, and I think that I see that in you. I didn't know this story, but I see that.
yeah, I don't share this story often.
And
I think it
it
hits
hits
hard a
home.
little bit. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's personal, but I
yeah,
think that is part of the amazing person you are, and that is now a a super skill or a true strength. And then the other thing I just wanted to highlight too was, often things that are personal, we keep separate from professional. So it's
yeah,
like that was my home and that happened to me when I was a kid, but
yeah,
now I'm in the workforce and I'm a professional and I'm doing another presentation, but our whole self is one. And
yeah.
so I think I've heard this a number of times that it's when we've got things that we may classify in our head as being personal, like not directly relevant to work, it absolutely affects us at work because we're still the same person who turns up at work as the same person who lived through those experiences. And, and just also the body and the mind and the subconscious can suppress things, but not forever, right? Because otherwise they're just waiting, like they're waiting, and they'll suddenly come up at the most inopportune times, I might add. But they're still
That's the truth.
and it doesn't make necessarily logical, rational sense as we think about what rational looks like in the workplace. But once we start to feel and see these emotions that may have nothing to do with work, if they're showing up at work, it just means that we need to address it. We need to listen to ourselves. We need to understand. And that's what I think is so incredible about your story, Jess. Like, you're sharing how it's affected you as a person, but 20 years later.
Yeah, and I would say I probably blocked a lot of that from my life for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because it wasn't an easy thing. It clearly had enough of an impact that I couldn't quite deal with it. And it's probably maybe only more recently that I have understood just how much it did impact my own behavior. And, you talk about how it manifests. And I think, sometimes it would come out as frustration, or, you talk about I'm not good. So some of the shame and that sort of thing is the I'm not good enough. That's that connection, like with that like that insecurity. It was like, yeah, I'm not good enough. So when I would find that if I was faced with something really difficult, a really difficult challenge, that could seep through, that could seep in. And that's where, feelings of anxiety or or even maybe externalizing, why you can't get something done, or why, that's where I experienced some of that. And the body was the one that told me, told me, hey, something's up. I knew, when something's not right, you're just not living. I don't want to use authentic, but I guess that is it. Now I've got the words to use it, but at the time I wouldn't have used those words, but it would have been like, something's just off. Yeah. And so, it took actually, it took me just, I knew something was up. So what did I do? I ran away to New York. Again, therapists can have a field day with that. And it was right at the time when my dad also got diagnosed with Parkinson's, but which ended up turning out to actually being a degenerative brain disease, which there isn't a cure for. So I think it was, I went to New York, just hit rock bottom, and it was almost like had to hit that to be able to come back up and really work through and reflect on a lot of I guess there was a lot of sadness and grief, there was a lot of difficulty, I guess in my bringing up, and I blocked it out. And so, and it does manifest. It comes back. It comes through in just little ways. And so I knew it had to be addressed. So I think that struggle, I now have so much gratitude for. I like actually saying it now, it almost like fills my cup. I've got so much gratitude for that experience because of just what it has enabled me to do, and what it's enabled me to just open my heart so much more. And I think one of my big learnings is, even though I was maybe frustrated and sometimes angry when I was a bit younger, actually my love generally is absolutely boundless. And when my dad got really sick and his partner's been looking after him, and there was a lot of stuff going on. Actually, it was just instinctively that I left New York, came back home, and new family became the priority. And that was a real flip, because rather than running away from everything, I was running to it head on, and running into the challenges that we're facing as a family head on. And it's sort of like comes full circle a bit, because here I was coming back to look after my family.
Yeah.
Right, going right back to my childhood, looking after family. But I think this time I was going into it with way more awareness.
Yes. And with an adult perspective.
A bit of an adult perspective, not my child mind, way more of an adult perspective. And the profoundness of having connection after being fiercely independent for so long, and choosing to put, actually it was a choice, choosing to put my family first now for the first time in quite some time, was a big flip in mindset. And I don't really know where I'm going with it, but I think it comes back to, now I find myself in this in a CEO role. I was like, I never actually thought I would be sitting in this position. And I think, I guess I never really saw anyone, any leaders who were like me when I was going through my career. And so I never really saw myself in that. I'm reserved, and I'd always pretend I was something else, out there trying to be an extrovert, when really I'm an introvert. Just wearing that armor again, and I was trying to be all these things and trying to do all these things, and it just got so hard. It just got really hard, and it would come out in different ways. So in order to move into, and I just want to touch on your book for a second, and the work that you do, to move into a growth mindset, I had to go back and deal with that. I really had to face it. But being able to do that, it just unlocked a lot of things, and just enabled me to go, hey, you can actually take on anything. You can do it, and you can do it in your way.
Yes.
And I do find, and that has been, it's still a journey. You still learn things every single day. It never ends, I can assure you. But that kind of sitting into myself and really reflecting and going and turning what maybe had been a bit of a challenge or a block, or was holding me back, unlocking that has really turned things around, and just go, really, I'm able to do anything. And a lot of those things I thought were maybe things that would hold me back are actually the things that propel me forward.
Yes.
So, and that's just mindset, right? That's what's so amazing. I think, I know you've been doing some work with meditation, and I do as well. I've been down to Peru and worked with Shipibo people, done all that, a bit of that stuff. And it's sort of like growth comes from within. So much of it comes from within. You're in control. And I'm really inspired by the fact that it is an ongoing journey, and everything can change. Anything can change tomorrow, So I find myself now sitting in a leadership, in this a CEO leadership role. We're going through incredible change, so much disruption and change right now. But for some reason, I just have this, and this is my third chapter, quiet confidence of just being like, cool, let's go, bring it on. So so I guess my growth story.
Great.
No one catalyst.
Incredible.
It's a big journey.
There's so much courage also in you sharing this story. And I do a lot of work around uncomfortable growth, which includes, how do we understand the things that are our triggers or hold us back. I often use the term, we just need to get out of our own way, because a lot of what holds us back is inside us. And unless we do the hard work and deal with it, it stays there, like it needs to be resolved. And one of the things I say to people, who might be thinking about doing the uncomfortable growth program, they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready. I haven't done enough, I don't know, pre-work. And I'm like, you don't need pre-work.
This is the work. Yeah,
the work is in here.
Yeah.
And it's having that courage to actually go, okay, I need to understand it because it's there. It's holding me back. The words you used were beautiful, which is it was such hard work to be I couldn't be myself. Like I was trying to be this thing. I had all the armor on. And I was trying to be something that I wasn't. And it takes so much energy and effort. And that's so true. And
Yeah.
and also I think other people can see that too. So,
my gosh, isn't that true? When I realized that, I just was like, I was fooling no one. I was fooling no one other than myself. That was really confronting. That realization was probably one of the most confronting moments. And that's just you saying that has come to me. It's just like, I was fooling no one. And yeah. And I don't think I understood what authentic leadership meant until sort of that moment where you go, oh, because people can see.
Yeah, they can sense the tension or the facade or the effort, right? Because when you're just able to be you without all the armor, or the mask or whatever you want to call it, it doesn't take added effort. You can just the moment, you can be okay connecting as people who are not perfect, but they're human, right? And, going through what you did as a child, it's not fair. Like people get dealt different hands, like I was dealt, I don't know, like a really good hand for my young childhood versus what you had. But I've had other challenges, right? Because like you said, anything can happen, like anything can come your way. There'll be the curveballs but all of these experiences, they do add up to who we are. And what we need to do the work on is understanding what are the pieces that are holding us back.
And actually, you gave me a thought there. I think one of the learnings, I would compare when I was younger. I would compare, and maybe not consciously, but you kind of knew that things were different to maybe what some others had. And I'm not sure if it was a driver or there was resentment, maybe a bit of both, to be honest. But the definitely a driving force, because I was like, there is more, and I'm going after it. I don't know what it is, but I'm going,
Yeah. And I'm going to protect myself against the doubt, like the hard side.
And I'm just going to get there. And it's like, come hell or high water. So I was, that's what I mean by that. Like, crippling insecurity, but this like crazy, weird looking, like, a drive with this fierce independence with my armor on. I'm going, so it's that double-edged sword. But, the danger of comparison. And I do see this a lot. We got quite a big company, and I do see this, and particularly because cost of living crisis and all of this at the moment. Like there's a lot going on, and but that danger of comparison is really that can be a limiting mindset, because rather than looking at what you got and just kind of going, what can I do with it? And thinking someone else has it all, when to your point, you have no idea. You have no idea what they've
You have no idea what they're carrying.
No idea what they're carrying. you know, what's ahead for them. Like, you've just got no idea. And so how they think, because we can perceive the same things in different ways, right? Like the same event in a different way. So it's like, you don't know how they're processing, you don't know what they're learning from it, what they're taking from it. So I think that one is a very real thing that happens, you know, a lot. And certainly something that thankfully, I think I did recognize that earlier on. Like, you just can't compare.
Yeah.
I think that's where my being a bit of a dreamer and creative, I kind of dreamt in my own world a bit, which was probably a bit of a safety net in a good way. I'm like in La La Land, just like, oh no, it's all good. My life's
Yeah.
great. So, but it can creep in.
Yeah. Oh, and
And
everything around us is reinforcing. I have a whole soapbox talk about comparisonitis.
oh, really? Oh, do you?
Of it.
Okay.
And the
So you're
danger
ready to
of
get
it.
in.
Yeah,
Get
no,
straight
but
in.
I think it's like I feel so strongly about it because life's not fair, right? Like I said, like you had so much more challenge than I did. And people have different challenges thrown at them through life, right? So the starting point is life isn't fair, but also I think true acceptance and peace comes from knowing that you are enough as
Oh, yeah.
like
Yeah.
you are enough. It's not about what they're doing or what they've got or, what title you have or what car you have. And of course, it's nice to be able to know that you can work and pay for living expenses and not have huge financial stress. That's a privilege that not
Yeah.
everyone has. But at the end of the day, you know, true happiness lies in you and just knowing that you are enough. And like everyone has these incredible, unique gifts that come from that very varied experience of life on top of what they were born with.
And isn't that like so exciting? I think that's one of the most exciting things about humans.
Yes, yes,
I always say we're all weird and wonderful
yes.
because
Fascinating, right? It's
there's
absolutely
no one
fascinating.
person the same. So, you know, we should never have any expectation on what you're gonna get, because, you know, that is the magic of life. And you know, it's in our differences that beauty comes. Um and I don't know that I would have always said that, but like I feel that in my bones these days. Like it
Yeah.
really is. And you know, I think that comes from a bit of, again, it's that genuine. I was very hard. I was hard on myself. You know, that, you know, not enough, like critical, that inner critic. And but that can manifest then out into being critical of others.
Yeah.
And but like, you know, it goes into all the, you know, love yourself first and all that sort of thing. But it's genuinely it's the differences in people. And I think back to my disabled sister, and actually I saw her on the weekend, and she's hilarious. She's a handful, but like she has these little like quirks about her, like an incredible memory. Like she will, like an elephant. An elephant has good, yeah,
Yeah.
memory like an elephant. She will remember everything. So if you bring up a topic like 20 years later, she'll be like, oh no, this, yeah, like this, like this. And you're like, how do you remember that? Like, so and it just goes to show, and I do have a point to this. It's like that just says to me, like, at a surface level, you just don't know what hidden talents are there, just because you don't see them straight away. Like everyone has something really special and unique that they can share. It's just about giving the opportunity for
Yeah.
them to show it.
Yeah.
And like how amazing is that? And that's actually people who are maybe harder to read or a little quirkier, that you know, that's interesting. It's in the differences that we're able to kind of unlock genius, particularly if I think about working in teams and working in collaboration. That is pure genius when you get these unique little
Yes.
pieces about
Yes.
someone together, and then you're able to make it work. Like, you know,
Uh-huh.
that's when you get really like profound work coming out of teams and that sort of thing. But it requires just a bit of, you know, humble
Yeah.
acceptance, a bit of curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah, no critic, no
Cycle.
judgment,
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Because
letting
we are
humans
our
being
hardest
humans.
critic. We are
Yeah.
absolutely our hardest critic. And I think what I hear actually someone who I really admire said the other day that 60% of our thoughts are self-negative. So out of
Yeah.
all of our thoughts around ourselves, more than 60% are negative. And I just think, wow, you know, like we have to
Isn't
learn
that
how to
crazy?
be kind to
Yeah.
ourselves to then have the awareness that others may be being unkind to themselves, but how can we
Mm.
help them actually flip that? Exactly like you talked about in your story. And I just, you know, I always keep in my mind a couple of things that you've triggered with me. I always keep in my mind or assume that at any one point, everyone is dealing with at least one really hard thing.
Mm.
So, you know,
Mm.
it can look really different, but just assume that everyone is dealing with one really hard thing. And for me, that always helps me to be compassionate or to ask more questions,
Mm.
to understand what may be going on. And I think the other like massive takeout from your story, Jess, is as hard as it is to do the self-work, it is the most rewarding thing you can ever do because you are your life's project,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the only person you're with for your whole life is
Is
you,
you.
is you. But we
So
have so
yeah.
much depth. We have so
Hopefully you
much.
like you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or love, even
There's
better.
there's a lot in there. And, you know, rather than the focus, I think, just being external, which has a beautiful role, but there's so much opportunity, potential, and value to be realized within
Mm.
you. And but it's doing the work. It's just like, you know, when you think about school or a job, it's like there's work to be done. You need to develop and grow. And doing the self work, I think, is the foundation of being an incredible professional.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting to think that um, like doing the work, taking a step back and working on yourself. And for me, part of that has been, you know, turning off the mind a little bit, getting back into the body, being still. To me, I never thought that in itself was work and
Mhm.
is what is setting me up to be able to show up in the best way for, you know, everyone else around me. And particularly if then you get the privilege of sitting in a leadership position, it's sort of like, well, you're then showing up for everyone, for a lot of people every day. So how you show up, like it does matter. So um taking, and who would have thought in a super fast paced world that we live in, taking a step back and sitting with yourself and being and quieting the mind and just being still
Mhm.
can just have such profound impact, and in itself is actually can propel a business forward in so many ways. And working on yourself can do that. And I know, you know, some listeners might think, well, duh. But, you know, I think it's one thing to maybe go to know that. And it's a very different thing to experience and live that and practice that, because I think
Yes.
it is a lifelong practice,
Yeah.
and there is discipline in it. There's a lot that comes from it. And
Mm.
I don't know that that's necessarily, I mean, I haven't picked up a leadership book. I didn't learn that when I was, you know, at studies, or, you know, that wasn't necessarily taught. So
Mm.
um, I do think it's an interesting approach that you take, where it's like, hey, looking inward to then be able to be more successful outward.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's like heaps of people who have been listening who are like, I want to work for her.
I hope so, because I do feel like I've been rambling, but if anyone has that reaction, great. I would say come and get a job, but I'm not sure we have anything open right now. But give me 6 months and we'll be firing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so I've got a couple of quick fire questions for you, Jess, just to wrap us up.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, the first one. What are 3 things you've learned about yourself in recent years?
3 things. Okay. I would say, in spite of maybe a harder exterior at times, or being, maybe despite maybe coming off as having a hard exterior, that sort of some of the vibes in my earlier years. I think more recently, particularly just the experience with my dad. I have an unboundless capacity for love and compassion, and that actually means a lot to me. Like, at least acknowledging that in myself.
Oh, that just gave me goosebumps.
Oh,
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I really surprised myself at just what I'm how open my heart can really be. Was tested a little bit with some things that happened with the family recently, just around my dad and stuff. So, and just being able to take a step back and just cut out the noise, and just be 100% just lead with love. And what a difference that can make has been a profound experience, and a very big learning. Just touching on what we were talking about before, being human is okay. I am definitely still human, definitely still learning, definitely still on the journey. And I think even allowing myself to be more expressive and keep taking that armor off, because with every expression, even if it's a bit of a wobble, maybe not so great, there's a learning in that. So I think really that humanness, and I think we're talking about that inner critic. I think just really embracing the humanness is good. And I think even more recently, probably more from a work environment, I'm really learning that being reserved and maybe more of an introverted leader is not just okay. It's actually a bit of a superpower, particularly with so much change. And I've always thought you've needed to be an extrovert. Like, that has always been, or there's a certain mold you have to fit. But I'm really seeing that actually there's a lot to be said for those who are able to listen, take in a lot of what's going on, and truly embrace what's happening, and then be able to formulate a path forward. I'm really learning to lean into my strengths, but really see them as like a superpower. So I would say I
think that's one of the nicest things about today's world, because there's so much more acceptance or positivity towards diversity, that it's like there's not the one mold. It's not just here's the extrovert who talks like this and walks like this. It's every person has a different blend of strengths, and those strengths have their own superpower. It's when you're able to harness them too. The combination is what gives you the plus. I think that's one of the best things about being in the workforce today. shift from you need to be like this to you can be your own person and you have strengths and we need these strengths because they're different to others.
Yeah.
I think that's fab. Okay, I've got quick last question for you.
Oh yeah, sorry, it's meant to be rapid fire.
That's okay.
I'll
We
get
could
better.
talk
Maybe
forever.
yeah, exactly. I'll keep talking.
Yeah. Same. Okay, so what is a current fear, inspiration, and challenge for you at the moment? So it's a fear, an inspiration, and a challenge. 3 things.
My current fear, and I'm gotta be speedy. I, what am I fearing? That is such a good question right now. I tell you what, I actually do have a fear that I could be getting, I could be I may not be giving enough time and attention to my creative self.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it is a core driver of mine and actually one of my very early skill sets when I was younger. And I have put it to the side over the years. And right now I have, because
All
in a
the
really
stuff.
demanding job, there's all the stuff, life stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I go, am I going to lose that for life? If you don't use it, you lose it.
Okay,
That's
well,
actually a real fear I have right
yeah,
now.
I
That's a
can
real
see
fear.
that. Maybe that's a fun project for the future.
That's yeah, it's on
Project
the back of my
creativity.
mind. It just keeps like it's just like little like itching away at me. Like, hey, what
Yeah.
are you doing? Yeah. So anyway, that's an interest. I haven't really thought about that. It's there though. Yeah. So that's probably a hidden fear. I'm just ignoring at the minute, but probably need to give attention to. Yeah.
Okay. Inspiration and challenge.
I'm inspired by the fact that nothing is forever. Now
Mm,
that is
love
maybe let's
that.
go back to fear. And that's a little bit terrifying at the same time. But no, I really, really love the idea that nothing is forever because
Mm,
coming back to this, you're in control of your world. Like, so it starts with you.
mm,
And that is really exciting for me because it means literally life is just boundless
mm,
and there is constant change. There's
mm.
always going to be change. And I find that really, really exciting. I find that really inspiring.
That's
Um,
awesome. That's brilliant.
yeah.
I love that. I think that's
Yeah.
the most interesting answer I've had on that question. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel it in my bones. Like, I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, okay, like what else? What else is gonna come? And
yeah.
it's not like letting life happen to you, but just like, hey, what are you getting
Yeah,
ready
I'm
for?
up for
Because
it.
who knows what's next, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I love the idea of constant change, and that does inspire me. And particularly at the minute, I mean, we actually feel it and see it at the moment, right? In
yeah,
the economy, in our industry,
yeah,
And
yeah.
then what was the other one?
Challenge. The
And the
challenge.
challenge. My big challenge is staying connected.
Mm,
So as things go crazy, I do need to make sure I have time to recharge, but then stay connected.
mm,
So connection has always been a challenge for me throughout my entire life. And kind of goes back to all the story. We don't need to go through it all again, but like the
mm,
connection is a challenge, and it's something I just put um, well, I think it's a challenge. It may not be, but I just, it's something I value at least. And it's something I want to make sure I don't let my being reserved self lose sight of, particularly when there is so much volatility and stuff going at the moment. And that might be connection with my family. That might be connection with myself. It may be connection with the team. It may be connection. There's a lot. There's a lot that goes on in life, and I
yeah.
think it's easy to get into your own. I mean, it's easy for me to get into my own world a little bit, and so I think that is always an ongoing challenge because I think I value it so much.
Yeah. Oh, that's That's a brilliant answer too. That's what I love about these podcasts. I just
You
get
never know what you're going to get.
so much personal insight, learning, inspiration from the people I'm talking to. So thank you so much, Jess. That's been such an incredible sharing of your uncomfortable growth story. And oh wow, it's just inspired me in so many different ways. So thank you.
And thank you for having me on. And I just want to say, Rowena, we've done a bit of work together, and we have a number of conversations, but I just want to thank you, because what you're able to bring to either in one-on-one conversation or a group conversation, or just your energy in a room, you just give so much, and so much insight and willingness to be open and listen. And that just fosters just such a wonderful conversation. And I think, you definitely light me up every time I talk to you. I just want to say thank you as well. And thanks for having me on and letting me share.
Thank you, Jess. If you are inspired but thinking, I can't do that, then you are so wrong. Anyone can learn the art of uncomfortable growth with the help of my flagship program, Uncomfortable Growth, Own Your Reinvention. In this, you will learn to navigate your own internal contradictions to finally unlock the courage and commitment to live a deeply meaningful life by design and on your terms. Uncomfortable growth is about the struggle and joy in discovering who you are, what you truly want, and how to make it happen. If this is something you are ready for, then find out more at www.rowenamillward.com. What have you got to lose, or more importantly, gain?